from injury to on field.
So the scope of practice says, right, they can diagnose and they can take them right back onto the field. How many physios actually spend time on the field?
Is that what biokineticists? What's the difference? What's the difference between a physio and a biokineticist?
So biokinetics,
More training.
and I've actually given this at a physio conference in the past, is biokinetics comes in when exercise is your primary modality. So biokineticists they're not frontline practitioners. They can't diagnose, they can't treat anybody in pain, basically. So what we can do is we can use exercise to rehabilitate and train and to make people better.
Okay.
So at that phase of it, and unfortunately what's happening over the last 10 years, a lot about physiotherapy has moved away from electrotherapy. So they've moved away from doing all these electrical devices because there wasn't a lot of science behind it, but there's a lot more science in terms of their manual therapy. So their hand movements, their mobilization, their joint mobs, and their diagnostic skills. So that's where physiotherapists have fit in. And physiotherapists have fought hard for that because 10 years before that, the doctors used to do it. So what happened is you used to get injured and you used to have to go to a doctor who would give you a diagnosis and then would tell the physio this is what was happening. And physios thought, you don't always get that wrong. And certainly in sport, it's a different type of injury. It's a different mechanism. So the physios have done that. Now, I think that's great because as a bio that's been working for 30 years, I would never even consider how to diagnose because I don't have that skill. It's never been taught to me.
So do you get someone and they say this is wrong?
And that's after 30 years. But where I think we need a slight correction is that we get a lot of physios that are rehabbing people in their clinics or in their practices on a hard surface with a couple of balls, and they're then putting those people back onto the sport. And I'm thinking,
But is that out of their scope of practice?
No, it's within their scope.
But they're not doing it correctly.
But it's just, we've moved on.
Yeah, okay.
Do you know what I mean? We've moved on in terms of what does it need? Well, we need to be spending more time on the field. We need to be spending more time with the weights in the gym for the reasons that we spoke earlier about there's a lack of strength. So while the physio is rehabbing your knee, what conditioning are they doing to make sure that the rest of your body stays up to speed with what you're going to have to do? And I do get a lot of those athletes that go back and then they hurt themselves again or they get injured again. And you realize that there's such a focus on the injury, but there's no focus on the rest of the person. So their left knee is rehabilitated, but the rest of the person
falls apart.
So when they go back and play, that's what lets them down.
So when you train someone like Faf, is he back and forth between a physio and you? And are you guys all chatting and keeping in touch?
Yeah, we have to because what happens is that...
What's the chain?
So the chain, it's not a chain.